coming to life.
He still takes the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here.
Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so gotta be around the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. I appreciate you tuning in on this wonderful June Saturday night. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there and to my dad. Hopefully you get a chance to celebrate with your dad, or if you are a dad, happy Father's Day tomorrow. We get to watch some racing from Mexico with the Viva Mexico 250. The first time since 1958 that the Cup Series has had a points-paying race outside of the United States. They've had some exhibition races in Toronto or Canada. But yeah, we head south of the border to Mexico City, where we saw an exciting, actually very exciting Xfinity race earlier today with Daniel Suarez, the hometown favorite. He's really not from Mexico City, but since he's from Mexico, they kind of claim him. But he ended up getting the win, coming from 39th place in a backup car to end up winning I don't even know what the race was called today, but I don't know. Whatever it was 65 laps, and tomorrow's race will be 100 laps. So lots of excitement in store for the Viva Mexico 250. But before we head down south, let's head up north, almost to the Canadian border, where Denny Hamlin, and congratulations, Denny Hamlin is now a 3-time father as of Wednesday and will not be making the trip to Mexico for this race. He's at home with his fiance and now 3 children and newest son. So congratulations, Denny. What a Father's Day present for Denny Hamlin, including his big win at Michigan. But who did well and who didn't do well at Michigan? Well, who did do well? Well, Denny started in third and finished in first and had 58.15 points and the most Draftkings points on the day. He was one of my picks to end up winning this race. That track type just fits Denny Hamlin's driving style fairly well. So good for him. Chris Buescher, a previous winner 2 years ago at Michigan, ended up coming in second. Ross Chastain, the winner for the Coke 600 earlier, finished in 6th. Brad Keselowski with a good top 10 finish in 10th. Daniel Suarez, again, our Mexican boy, almost winning in Canada, finished at 14th. And Bubba Wallace finishing in 4th, rounds out the top 6 highest point getters for the optimal lineup at Michigan. At the top of the heap of our optimal lineup challenge after 15 races, Kyle Larson, and now Ross Chastain is tied with Kyle at 7. They've kind of separated themselves from the field with William Byron, Ryan Preece, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin with 5. Other drivers who did not make the full optimal lineup but still ended up with a really good day. Ryan Preece starting in 23rd, finishing in 9th. Ty Gibbs with a good 3rd place finish. They're really starting to come on, and when we get to our practice data, he seems to be very fast at the Mexico race circuit. Eric Jones with a decent finish. Christopher Bell, 25th to 16th. Zane Smith with another good top 10 finish. Kyle Larson holding 5th pretty much most of the day. And Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon rounding out the other drivers not making the optimal lineup, but having a good day. All right, let's head south of the border to Mexico City for the Viva Mexico 250. To the Autodroma Hermandos Rodriguez racecourse. It's in downtown Mexico City. Probably the most unique part about this track other than it being in downtown Mexico City, it is also at an elevation of over 7,500 feet. And I had no earthly idea that I knew it was going to be tough on the drivers, and I knew the air was thinner. I didn't have a clue that it was going to do all the different things it's going to do with this car, or any car, and when it races. Downforce is different. The brakes perform differently. The engines get hotter faster. The tire wear is different. Everything is a little bit different, more so than any other track that they have ever raced at. So that will and has presented its own challenges for these race teams during practice. And we saw practice speeds all over the board for and luckily enough, we had almost 90 minutes of practice. So it gave a lot of teams a chance to kind of really hopefully start to hunt down what their car needed and wanted. And then, of course, there's always Shane Van Gisbergen, who just is really good at these things and didn't seem to bother him too much. About after 3 or 4 laps, he had it tuned in and it was off to the races. And I'm not sure anybody's going to be able to catch him unless the altitude takes its toll on I don't think it'll be the driver. The driver seems to be in perfectly good shape, but mechanical issues seem to be the primary issue in the Xfinity race earlier. So I'm expecting that we may see something similar when it comes to the race for the Cup Series in Mexico. This is the first time that they've ever raced here in the Cup Series. Family man, you made it back. Had a great supper. Congratulations, and happy Father's Day to you. And glad you got to go spend some time with your family tonight for dinner. But we've got some racing to talk about, so we'll dive into that a little bit more. You can track comparisons. I mean, this is kind of unique. It's actually a fairly flat road course. No real elevation changes on the course other than it being at over 7,500 feet and above sea level. It is a fairly flat course. So when we look back, I mean, Circuits of America has got a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns. It's not the flattest track. Long straightaways. Sonoma, same thing. It's got a lot of elevation changes throughout the course. I guess Chicago is somewhat flat for the most part. We do have some bridges and stuff that they do have to go up and down, but that would probably be the closest to a flat track. Watkins Glen is extremely hilly, and there's lots of ups and downs when it comes to that. So this is going to be a very unique. A lot of people described it kind of like the Indy road course. It does not have a lot of elevation changes throughout the course. Any of these road courses, anytime you got to turn right and left when most of these drivers are used to just turning left, is always a new twist and challenge. Optimal lineups that we can look at in the past, which will be the last 4 road courses. We are going to race for 100 laps tomorrow. COTA earlier this year did shorten the distance of the track and ended up gaining extra laps. So they were at 95 laps. So that's pretty close. And this kind of shows the optimal lineups. A lot of it's place differential. A lot of it is top 10 finishes. Dominators aren't going to be a huge factor. It could, because our pole sitter could lead a lot of laps in this race tomorrow if things kind of play out the way I think they're going to. I'm not sure there's anybody in the field that is going to have the speed and natural talent that SVG has got. This is lining up to be potentially a very dominating race by SVG. Now, I mean, there's always things that happen, and we could see some strategy calls come into play. They can make it to the end of both stage 1 and stage 2 without pitting, but they will probably short pit, which means come in about with 2 laps or 3 laps to go and change tires, so that way they can cycle through to retake the lead at the restarts after stage 1 and stage 2. And then after that, it's going to be depending on when cautions fall. Tire wear is a slight factor. It's not a huge factor. It all depends on whether these guys lock up their tires going into the corners and they end up getting flat spots. Because once you kind of get one flat spot, anytime you get back hard on the brakes, the tire has a tendency, because at that point it's not completely round, it'll have a little bit of a flat spot in it. So when they go through the corner, the tire has a tendency to get to that flat spot and then drag again. And then it just continues to get worse and worse. And if that becomes the case, you'll also start to get a vibration, and then the handling starts to go away. So you might have to pit in early because of that. But the natural tire wear without lockups does not seem to be an extreme issue this weekend at all. Matt says, the tournament player in me wants to fade SVG, but would be very mild, no less than 35 to 40%. Yeah. This is the very typical damn if you do, damn if you don't scenario. If you don't have him and he does well, like as well as I think he's going to, you're going to miss the optimal lineup, and you're probably going to miss most of the lineups. If you don't have him and he doesn't do well, you're going to be in a much smaller minority. I'm expecting SVG to be probably 60 to 65% owned. I mean, today Connor Zilic was, I don't think he was the highest owned. I think, let me see, how high was how Connor Zilic was. He's won every Xfinity road course race that he's been in. Super talented young man. Xfinity days race percentages. Suarez was the highest owned driver at 68%. But he was starting in 39th, and he was one of the faster cars in practice, and he was at a race course that he was very familiar with, where a lot of other drivers were not. Connor Zilic was 61% owned, and he was starting from the pole and was hands down the fastest in practice. So the biggest place differential was the highest owned, and second was probably the fastest. I mean, Connor Zilic did end up coming back. He did not make the optimal lineup, but he did end up with 42.85 Draftkings points, which was not far out of the optimal. He was still in the top, top 10, looks like. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He was 11th in Draftkings points with almost 43 points. So that one kind of fell in the middle. You could have still had him and Daniel Suarez in your lineups, and you probably still would have finished really, really well. But so back to the whole SVG, have him or don't have him. I think he's going to be 55, 60% owned. So if he does well, those 60, and you don't, let's say he does really well, he wins the race, he leads 70, 75 laps tomorrow. And if you don't have him, the other 60% of the lineups are going to eat you up. If you are even with the field, you're going to be inside that 60% group, and it becomes pretty much a free square. So what you're doing is you're battling with the other 5 drivers inside the lineup. I'm probably going to be fairly close to even on the field. I know Matt says he's probably going to fade a little bit, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, that's probably the smarter tournament play. And, once I do my lineups, I may end up coming closer to the 45, 50%. This whole thing is just lining up to be an SVG type of day. Like I said, we saw a lot of drivers in the Xfinity series have mechanical issues. Before they did end up having a fairly large wreck at the front of the field at the start of stage 3. But before that, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Seven cars that had mechanical issues before the start of stage 3 that took drivers either out or put them many laps down. Will we see that tomorrow? I'm not sure if we see 7. The Cup car engine, brake package, all of the mechanical pieces of that car seem to be a little bit more sturdy than the Xfinity car. You also have a lot more money that is put into the Cup car than the Xfinity car. So parts and pieces typically don't break as easy. Now we've seen more engine failures this year in the Cup Series than we have in past years. Will the higher altitudes, lower boiling point change the potentials of having some more engine failures? Maybe. I'm not going into this race thinking we're going to see an extreme amount. Ken, how we doing tonight, sir? Since they got wins, do you think Byron Bell will pit early and get track position before the first stage ends? And they both have wins. No, I think it's actually the opposite. Now Byron Bell coming for that. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think the real concern. Okay, so let's go through the first concern. Is how does SVG maintain and hold the lead? Well, he's going to ideally, because SVG is so far back in points. So pretty much with the points. Here, let's pull the points up because that will be a factor for this race. Standings. All right, Cup Series standings currently. Pretty much from, I would say, I think Carson can still point his way in. Well, probably not, especially if SVG wins. So I would say from Hocevar down. So Hocevar, AJ, Ricky, Eric Jones, Zane Smith, and we get down to like Ty Gibbs, Michael McDowell. All these guys are pretty much on the cusp of they need to win to get into the playoffs. You're not concerned about points. So you're not concerned about staying out for stage points. So with that being said, what they're trying to do is align themselves to win races, especially AJ, who's really good or pretty decent at road courses, SVG, who's 33rd in points. All of those guys are going to pit before stage 1 and before stage 2. Because what'll happen is they'll come in and pit. The track is so large and large enough that you can pit, come out, stay on the lead lap. When the caution comes out for the stage break, the leaders will come in. You'll pass them while they're on pit road under caution. You'll get the restart ahead of them. The only ones that I see potentially staying out, and this kind of comes back to what Ken is asking, is do I think Byron Bell will pit early? No, I think they actually stay out to get potentially some points, but the point, since they have the win, the points aren't as big of a factor unless they can get a stage win. So if you have a win in the bag, or you are somebody like a Chase Elliott who doesn't have a win but is very, very safe in their points right now, Tyler Reddick, same thing. Bubba's probably okay. He could go either way. Briscoe could go either way. I think Chase Briscoe probably comes in and does not pit and chases points. Buschard probably chases points. Bowman definitely is going to be chasing points. Priest, I see Priest staying out because more than likely SVG is going to come in, which would, if the running order doesn't change, SVG comes in, Ryan Preece is starting outside pole. Let's say Ryan Preece stays in second. That would turn the lead over to Ryan Preece. He could get a stage win, which would give him a bonus playoff point and get him 10 points on the point line. So I could easily see Ryan, if SVG comes in, I could see Ryan Preece taking the early points and not coming in. To get track position, Byron and Bell are going to need to race their way up. And both of them are fast enough in practice. They can make moves on the track. They both are also very good at road courses. That being said, they're starting from the back. They're going to have to make moves. So pretty much the rule of thumb is if you need stage points, you're not going to pit before the stage break. If you're only worried about the win, or you're not worried about stage points, you're going to come in 2 laps before the stage break. You kind of have to make a decision on who you think that's going to be or not be. And typically what you're going to do, like SVG is going to go for the win. Plain and simple, hands down. He's 33rd in points. Getting a stage win or stage points does not factor into his world at all at this point. So to win is you pit early in stage 1, you pit early in stage 2, you retake the lead at the start of stage 2 and at the start of stage 3, and you hopefully build enough of a lead and there's no caution and you win the race. That's the thought process, and that's kind of with the process that you have to kind of think about. Or even if a caution does come out and you do have a 10-second lead, you've shown that you're fast enough, and you should be able to get a good restart and continue on. Now, it'll get a little confusing if we get 25 laps in, or 15 laps into a run in stage 3, caution comes out, you're borderline on making it to the end by pitting or not pitting. Do tires... And we really won't find out what the tire wear truly is until we get to that first caution or first stage break when they do their first tire change. Because we haven't really run enough laps to find out if they're going to really be an issue. Like I said, I mean, when we did practice, I think the most they ran was like 15 laps on tires, 17 laps on tires. It's going to show tire wear, but when you get all the cars on the track, all running at full speed, the rubber gets laid down a little different, the track heats up a little different. I mean, there's lots of factors. Either way, with that being said, I think it all depends on whether they need points or they're going to go for wins. Byron and Bell don't need necessarily the win. They can pad their points a little bit. So I think it all depends on where they're at. They're going to, unless there's a mechanical issue or an accident, Byron and Bell are going to work their way through the field. They're good enough, which also means they're going to be heavily owned. Optimal lineups from previous road courses. Right here we can just see the highest starting spot was 24th for Chris Buescher, who finished 7th at COTA. Down here at Charlotte, Carson Hocevar started 20th, finished 12th. So nobody right now outside the top 25 made the optimal lineup in the last 2 road courses. Now let's look at Watkins Glen. 29th for Carson Hocevar, finished in 3rd. Chris Buescher in 24th. Now Chicago, a little bit different story. We also had some wrecks early, and Joey Hand finished 4th. We had, this was a huge attrition type of race, and it got kind of twisted and turned, and Chicago's just been a wonky street course. But the other thing you can look at is we had $7,100 left at Watkins Glen. We had $8,800 last year left in Chicago, and $900 for both COTA and Roval, our last 2 road courses. So that kind of leads me to also mention that you probably don't want to spend all of your money. You can. But if all of a sudden you put a lineup together that you think is pretty good and you've got $2,000 left on the table, don't rework it. stay with what your gut feeling is. If you think it's a good lineup, run it. We've seen that $7,100 left on the table and $8,800 left on the table can still win an optimal lineup or win a tournament. So don't get too scared if all of a sudden you're like, I want to put these drivers together, and you're like, oh, I've got $3,000 left of salary cap. I got to make some changes. I need to spend more money. No, you don't have to. And it's really what you're looking for is who you think's going to finish in the top 10. That's honestly kind of where all of this falls. If we look at these lineups, 1st, 5th, 2nd, 7th, 9th, 8th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 12th, mostly because Carson Osavar was the cheapest driver. That's how that fit. 4th, 9th, 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 9th, 4th, 6th, 1st, 7th, 8th, 12th. It's who's going to finish in the top 10. That's almost more of the challenge is figuring out, or who do you want to put into the top 10? Because fast laps and laps led mean something, but they don't mean something. There's not enough of them for Dominator points to be a huge factor. Chris Buescher at Watkins Glen started in 24th. He did finish first. He led 19 laps, but Ross Chastain led 51. Started from the pole, lost 3 spots, and had 56 points. Now, Carson Osavar started in 29th, finished 3rd, only led 1 lap, and ended up with almost 70 points. So, place differential is going to be a huge factor. Fast laps aren't going to matter a whole lot. 18 is an extreme amount. Yeah. Well, Kyle Larson at Charlotte had 35. That was just a day that he dominated. And we could see this type of domination out of SVG tomorrow. SVG could easily have 35 to 40 fast laps. But I also expect him, if I'm putting SVG in my lineup, I'm expecting an absolute domination by him. And it's very easy for him to do that. Where do most of the points for these races come from? Like I said, it's 30th or better. 31st or worse, it's only 1.8 on average for the top 15 in Draftkings points getters. It's 5.2 starting in the top 10, 4.4 from 11th to 20th starting spot, and 3.6 from 21st to 30th. So if we're looking at it, 10 out of the 15 top Draftkings points getters are starting in the top 20. Place differential, making the top 15 in points, it's 8 drivers are scoring place differentials to make it into half of the top 15. The other thing we have to think about when we get into our little fancy-dancy calculator is what is the 15-point total? And this is kind of where I like to draw the line, is I want to build lineups around who I think the top 15 drivers for the day are going to be, and then mix and match throughout my lineups. And it's about 33.3 points is the kind of the as far low as you want to go for points. When we get to our calculator, just keep that in mind. 33 points and higher would be a potential top 15 Draftkings points getter. For optimal lineups, for our higher price drivers, $7,500 or more, kind of in that realm, it's about 55 to 56 is kind of where we're kind of looking. Anything above that should easily make the optimal lineup. So that's kind of the sweet spot is above 33 to 55, and anything above 55 that we think can happen is absolutely somebody we want to consider putting in our lineups. Anybody below 33, don't even waste your time with them. Just set it aside and go, okay, if it burns me, it burns me. Victorious Bell probably would get into the top 10 from 31st without incident. I'm also expecting some kind of turn 1 chaos like in the Xfinity today. Todd Gillen also is solid at road courses. He has a good chance at a top 10. Probably would be he is starting 7th. No. We'll look at Todd Gillen's practice speeds, and he's okay at road courses. There are other drivers who are better than him. I think he's probably going to be a decent sneaky pick. He'll be one of the drivers who's probably less than 10% owned. But we'll get into the driver by driver breakdown here momentarily. And we've got some practice data on him and all that. And what's up, Mr. Fish? Who are the road course ringers? SVG, plain and simple. Bios had raced. What? I guess my pick will be SVG. I would like to see AJ win, though. I don't know what your other comment is there. BOIS said racing? Question mark? I don't know what that means, Fish. I would say you're drunk, but you don't drink, so I know you well enough. Boris said, Boris said's not in this race. Is Boris said even alive anymore? I'm kidding. He raced earlier this year. All right, our driver by driver breakdown. Let's get to it. SVG, the most expensive driver in the field at $10,500, starting from the pole position. We had 2 practice sessions. In the first practice, Shane Van Gisbergen was 9th fastest in single lap. And there were a few cars that did 10 lap averages, but it was only like 4. So there's no reason to look at that as a metric. It was more of a 5 lap average and who had the best 5 lap average. And SVG was fastest in that. And when we look at his practice starts, it's very noticeable. And in practice 2, so practice 1 was, I think, 45 or 50 minutes. Practice 2 was 25 minutes, and it was like 30 minutes after practice 1. So we had like an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes of practice, which was great. I wish we would have more practice time, more data for us to scour over and get confused with. I'm kidding. And in the second practice, SVG was 10th in single lap. He only did 8 laps, but they were non-consecutive, so we did not have a 5 lap average for SVG. I think really what he was doing, I think he was fine-tuning his car for the pole run today. And that's a lot of times what will happen in a happy hour or happy half hour is you've taken the first practice or first 2 practices, what used to be, fine-tuned the car for the race, and then the happy hour practice, you fine-tuned the car for qualifying. And then you moved everything back to its race format for the race. And then they started doing all these funny impound rules, and then they started going away from practice, and then COVID happened, and there was no practice, and there was no qualifying. It was just line up and run, and then we've now kind of worked our way back to having more practices, and I want more practices. But SVG, the last 5 races, road courses, so Circuits of the America earlier this year, the Roval, Watkins Glen, Chicago Street Course, and Sonoma, all from last year, are based into this average right here. And SVG has 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 3 top 20s, a 35.5 Draftkings average, and a 13.8 average finish. And he had an average running position of 10.4. Nobody has raced here, so there is no last race in the Cup Series at this track. So this spot will be blank for everyone. And his total full race history on road courses in the Cup Series is 8 starts, 1 win, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 5 top 20s, and a 10.9 average finish. And some of these races, Chicago last year, he had super fast times in practice. Then we had some wet conditions, and he ended up getting turned into some barrels, and it was not a fun day for SVG. It was pretty much over before it started. Victoria says, I've seen Zilich go back to the top 5 with heavy damaged cars, so even if SVG gets caught up in an accident, I think he's got a good chance of catching back up quickly. And Zilich did that while crashing with only 20. Yeah, no. Zilich is absolutely an unbelievable road course driver. And so is SVG. Yes, SVG absolutely can make up spots without a problem, even with a damaged car. They have that much control over their cars. And even sometimes a little bit of damage actually helps slow them down a little bit. So that way, when they go through corners, they actually get through the corner a little bit faster than everyone else, and they end up making up time there. They'll lose a little bit of time on the straightaway, but they'll make it back up in the corners. So, yeah, either way, if it's not terminal, and SVG can stay on the lead lap, absolutely, because if that ends up happening, you might start to see paybacks, and they might start putting on a real show for the fans. Okay, our practice laps. I was not sure I was going to have this because the SMT data yesterday was all wonky and it was not being fed into, I don't know, whatever database was out there. And I did not have any of this information until after qualifying today. So I wasn't real sure that I was going to have any lap by lap data. But it finally came through and I was happy to see it because it kind of gives me a better idea on who looks good and who doesn't. Michael McDowell was the one that I compared SVG to, but SVG is going to be pretty much the constant when we look at all the drivers. But Michael McDowell had some really good practice speeds and was under the average line. So this average line is the white line here, and that's the average of all the drivers in all their laps. But Michael McDowell, as you can see, was definitely under that average line and actually ended up with a couple of faster laps. Now, this is not a consecutive run. They could have easily come in and, like Michael McDowell, we can see he improved his speeds. He may have come in and made an adjustment here. He probably made an adjustment here. And we see how they've gained in speed. Same thing with SVG. But these are all the laps that were at speed. So these are not consecutive runs. But out of the 14 and 15 laps, they're very, very similar. SVG did have better times throughout the run, and there was only, I don't know, one, maybe 2 laps that Michael McDowell was a little bit faster than SVG. Michael McDowell is going to be very good. Michael McDowell has won in the Cup Series. He has actually won at Mexico City. It was not in a NASCAR car. It was in a I don't even. It may have been a GT3 type of car, but Michael McDowell does have a win on this course, so he does know this course. He does not know the stadium section. They did not have that when he was running here before. The track is new to SVG though, but SVG makes adjustments very quickly. So that was the first practice. The second practice, Mike. I don't know why it's got Christopher Bell. Oh, because Christopher Bell was very consistent, very fast in the second practice. SVG only ran 6 laps, and it was pretty much a flat line for those 5 or 6 laps. So very consistent, very good lap times for SVG, and Christopher Bell was actually under the average. All right, so SVG being the most expensive driver who is starting in our pole position, let's play with our fun calculator here. Starting from the pole, and average finish is 11th, but I don't think we're not going to go with that. We're going to go after what we think his best view is there, and then we'll kind of move everything from there. Fast laps, his average fast laps, he's averaging about 8 to 10, so we'll say 9, and his laps led are about 12. So we'll do that, and that gives us 52.05 points. Starting first, finishing first. Doesn't quite get to the 55 points that we need, but it's definitely above the 33. That potentially is optimal or not optimal. But starting from the pole, finishing in first, more than likely he's going to lead a lot more laps than 12. I think it's 25, 25, 50. So let's say he leads 46 laps. And let's say he doesn't finish in first. Let's say he finishes in third. 54.55 points to finish in third, lead the first and second stage, and then kind of get shuffled back a little bit and end up finishing in third. It's still almost that 55-point threshold. I don't mind the SVG play. Do not take the SVG play if you don't think he's going to lead the first two stages or get the win, because it kind of puts it into a tougher spot. Now let's look at worst case. Let's say he does end up getting in the back of the field a little bit, ends up finishing 7th, but only leads 15 laps. Well, that's 38.88. That's top 15 in the top 15 realm, but probably not at 10,500. That probably is going to be too expensive. Andrew, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. You got destroyed in Xfinity. Not sure how to build for tomorrow. Would you build with all PD? No, it would not build with all PD. I would build with all who I think is going to finish well, which will include PD. SVG won't try to win stages, though. Wouldn't he be going for the win? Yes, SVG is absolutely going for the win. And when I said 48, I think the stages are 25 and 25. Pulling it up just to make sure. 20, 45, and then so 20, 25, and then 55 are the stages. So if he's going to he'll lead the first 18 of stage 1, then he'll lead the first 23 of stage 2. He'll miss the 2 laps that he comes in for his pit stops. But then at the start of stage 3 would put him back in the lead if he was the leader for all. If the storyline follows what we think. So that would be 40 laps led by the time we get to stage 3. And then if he falls to 7th, that's 45.05 points. So the scenario with taking SVG is you think he's going to dominate and he's going to at least be in the top 5. Anything more than 40 laps is going to be a bonus, and anything better than 5th is going to be a bonus. So 49.05 points at 10,500 is close. SVG won't try to win the stage, though. Yes, so I answered that. Yes. He's going for the win, so he's not going for stages. And I think you may have missed the beginning part of the video, which not a big deal. You don't need to go back and watch it. But I kind of broke down what drivers are potentially looking for stage points and what drivers are pretty much not point hunting anymore, and they're looking for wins. Like Ty Gibbs falls into the same group as SVG. They're both, and so it's like AJ's right on the cusp. Ty Gibbs is kind of right on the cusp too, but these are great opportunities for them to potentially get wins. And they'll get some points by their finishing positions if they all finish in the top 5. So if AJ, SVG, and Ty Gibbs all finish in the top 5, they're going to end up with pretty decent points days. They're not necessarily, they're more worried about a potential win than they're trying to lock themselves in and get in. Anybody else that's further back than 20th are absolutely going after wins. They're not worried about stage points. Somebody like an Alex Bowman is going to go for points. Tyler Reddick, depending on where he's running, probably going for stage points. They're looking at it as like Tyler Reddick is probably looking at it as like, oh, I can go get a win at Gateway in a couple weeks. I might be able to get a win at Pocono next week. So Tyler Reddick is probably in the thought process of, I don't necessarily need to win this race. I need a good points day to buffer my points, but I don't necessarily need to go get a win. But SVG is 33rd in points. He's not point hunting. He is looking for trophies. And that's kind of what college racing, well, Trackhouse, but that's kind of the mentality that's always been thought of with SVG and AJ and those guys is go get a road course win, lock yourself in the playoff. All right, Christopher Bell, 10,200. Yeah, and just remember, anything can happen. Christopher Bell was running top 3 today and had an engine let go, and I mean he was going to probably be a top 3 finisher in today's Xfinity race and blew up. So anything is possible with these road courses, and points are tough to get. There's not a whole lot of points out there to get. That's why finishing position is such a big deal. Victorious says, do you think about crashes and big ones? Who's good at avoiding them and who's not? And when you make picks, do you pick based on the scenarios that no one crashes? For super speedways, I absolutely build with building for the big one. For road courses, I build who I think is going to finish in the top 10 first. That's kind of where I start my build. I then look for place differential. So finishing position first, place differential second, and then third would be potential dominator. So number 1, I think SVG was fast enough in practice. He also is going to be potentially the fastest in the field. So I think he could probably finish top 5. So he's already checked my first big box. He's not going to get place differential, but I'm not worried if my thought process is SVG is going to win. I'm not worried about his place differential. Next thought is, can he dominate, and how many dominator type points can he get? Well, if he's going to start in first and finish in first, I think he's probably going to get a fair amount. So that's where I line up for SVG. Somebody like Christopher Bell, I think, has the potential to be top 10. He's also giving me the bonus of starting in 31st. Now, I also take into consideration that Christopher Bell, along with SVG, will probably be the second or third highest owned driver. So in tournaments, the only way to win tournaments is to differentiate yourself. I'm not sure if Christopher Bell is the way to differentiate, just like I don't know if SVG is the way to differentiate. Most lineups out of the gate, probably 60, let's say if both of them are 60% owned, not all of them are going to have SVG and Christopher Bell, but probably 40% are going to have both of those. So you can build a lineup with them and be with the field and be different with the other 4 drivers below it, or you can be completely contrarian, take Christopher Bell and SVG off the table, and then build thinking that you're going to be the opposite of the field with those 2 drivers. One of the 2 of these guys is going to end up having the day that we think that they're going to have. Christopher Bell is going to either get a top 10 and have a ton of place differential, or SVG is going to win and dominate. One of the 2 scenarios, I would say, is 80% going to happen. But Christopher Bell looked really strong until the car let go today. And I don't, he said he actually made a comment in his interview that, I promise I didn't blow it up on purpose, meaning he missed a shift. He said he didn't miss a shift. So I have to trust him on that. But Christopher Bell, 10,200, starting in the 31st position, and he was very consistent, very quick in practice. 13th single lap, 4th and 5-lap average in practice 1, 11th and 9th in practice 2. He's got 1 win out of the 5 races we're comparing to. He's got a 12.6 average finish. His average running position is 11th. 27 total road course starts. So he's got a 13.2 average finish for those 27 starts. Yeah, I mean, if we just go off his average, 13th to 31st, that's a ton of place differential. Look at his practice speeds. They're not bad. They're very good considering where he's at. They made adjustments throughout the practice. He looked very, very good in practice 1. Not quite as good as SVG. I don't need him to be, though. I don't need him to go beat SVG. I need him to go and beat 21 other drivers and get into the top 10. And then the second practice, he did a few more practice laps. He just missed on qualifying. So his loss is probably our gain. So we get to our little calculator here, and we put it in. Remember, we need to get to 55 points. It's not going to be real hard to do starting in 31st. I mean, doesn't even have to lead a lap. And all he's going to do is get to 7th, and he's got 66.4 points. You know, give me to 10th. And we'll bump you down to 5 of those and no laps led. That's 57.25 points. Give me to your average finish of 12th. That may still even, it's probably just under. Yeah, it's 52.25 points. We're trying to get to 55. So, yeah, I mean, the chances of Christopher Bell making it into the top 12, I think, are as good, if not better, than SVG finishing in first. Bell is your pick to win. Okay. I mean, his practice speeds were consistent. Something's gonna have to happen to SVG though. And something's gonna have to happen to Kyle Larson. Even though Kyle Larson quietly had a very quiet practice session. I don't know if Prime is just, he got so much coverage for Indy that Prime has kind of just quietly stayed away from Kyle Larson. But he's been kind of quiet the last couple weeks. He hasn't had super, super strong cars, but he's had decent finishes, top 10s. Not quite Kyle Larson-esque, but starting in 6th, with 5th practice speeds in first practice and 19th and 18th in the second practice, I think he did a little bit opposite. I think they were, and this is kind of what I've been seeing more and more with Hendrick, is everybody's in pretty good shape with points except for Alex Bowman. But he's in a whole other story. But Larson's got wins. Byron's got wins. Elliott is in pretty good shape in points. I think they're just setting their cars up to be really, really good and really consistent in the race. And I don't think they're that worried about getting pole positions, to be perfectly honest, or having the fastest practice speed. Because you can see, I mean, he's all over the board, and they're searching for speed or trying different lines is kind of what I'm seeing here. I don't love the inconsistencies here, but practice 2 is much better, much more consistent along the average axis here, which tells me he's really kind of just fine-tuning the car for a long run and having a really solid finish. I mean, he's got 3 wins already this year. He's really safe in points. Kyle Larson could easily be one of those that says, you know what, if you're going to hand me a stage win, I'm going to take the stage win because it's a bonus point in the playoffs. So I could easily see if Larson's running in 4th and the first 3 guys go into pits, Larson could easily just stay out and take another bonus point because he doesn't have to win. All right, so what? With that being the case, it kind of makes you go, okay, the Kyle Larson may or may not win. He has potential to win, sure. He's got plenty of road course wins. He's very good at road courses. He also likes to win. But let's say he's just kind of going to go cruise through the day, start in 5th and finish in 5th. And, if it happens that he gets lucky with some stage break type stuff and everybody else pits and he doesn't, so he leads 5 laps. And he's got 10 fast laps. Well, that's 44.75. Is he starting in 5th or 6th? Starting in 6th. Move this spot. Sorry. 45.75 points. It's probably not enough. Where does he need to get to get closer to that 50 or 55? 3rd? 2nd. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Larson's going to need to win to get to that 55.75, lead 5 laps, and have 10 fast laps. If he wins, he's going to have 10 fast laps, which is enough. But because of his price tag, I don't think starting in fifth and finishing, or starting in sixth, finishing in fifth, quite pulls it off. So we can go back and look at these optimal lineups. $10,000, 57.05, 10,200 or 9,055. I mean, William Byron at 9,800 did it with 48. Looking for people who didn't get over that threshold and how expensive they were. SVG, $9,800, 51 points. $9,400, William Byron, 55 points. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I like to play with this calculator a little bit and look back at these optimal lineups and go, that's probably not going to, even starting in sixth, finishing in fifth, it's a good points day. And if you've got him paired up with, Christopher Bell, who goes and gobbles up and gets you, how many points did we say? Let's say Christopher Bell goes and gets seventh. I mean, Christopher Bell gets 63 and Kyle Larson's in your lineup and gets 45. But we get some other cheapies that end up doing well. It plays. It makes it a little tougher though. So it's starting in six. He almost has to be top three or win. Not that Kyle Larson can't do that. I'll probably fade a little bit off of Kyle Larson because of this, but I won't be a complete fade. I'll be like 20-25% owned. I don't love the starting spot. I don't hate it either. He could just stay there all day and he's going to get you 45 points. But at $10,000, it's not going to be optimal. It's probably going to be 10th on the board. Now, you're running a cash lineup. He's a great cash play. But I'm playing tournaments. Either that or a very small field tournament. The single entry types. William Byron. Oh, here we go. Another one, just like Christopher Bell. So, yeah, I could easily see very popular lineups are going to be a SVG Christopher Bell, SVG William Byron. Christopher Bell, William Byron, forego SVG, and maybe pick up a Kyle Larson starting in six. That's pretty top heavy and pretty expensive to run all three of those, but you could also do just a William Byron and Kyle Larson, or a Christopher Bell and a Kyle Larson, and then build up with lower players. Victorious Year voids are Priest, Jones, Herbst, and Logano. Be careful with the Logano play. And yeah, I know I don't like Logano, and you guys talked me into playing Logano last week. I know you guys didn't, but I ended up playing way too much Logano and got burned again. But there's a real interesting scenario. What does Joey Logano do at new tracks, new venues, new repaves? He wins. He won the first race, well, the first repave race at North Wilkesboro. He won at the Clash in LA. He won the Clash at... Did he win the Clash at Bowman Gray? Yeah, earlier this year. What does Joey Logano do with new tracks at new venues? He wins. Be careful with the Logano play. He was also very good in practice. We'll get to him in just 1 second. William Byron. Now, William Byron, unlike Christopher Bell, was a little slower with practices. Wasn't bad, but a little bit slower. In the first practice, he didn't run a whole lot of laps, and he was kind of a little bit all over the board. Second practice, a little bit more like Kyle Larson. He kind of followed the average line, but still not as fast as an SVG, but I don't need him to be starting in 27th. Starting in 27th with his average finish of 15th, so he's going to have to do better than 15th for that price tag. 27th, if he finishes in 8th, they're not going to lead any laps doing that. And I think it's going to be more like fast laps of 4. Well, I mean, From 27th to 8th, 4 fast laps gives you 56.8 points. It's above the 55-point threshold. And that's just the top 10. So, yeah, somebody asked earlier how I build my lineup. So this William Byron definitely would be in my build. In fact, the William Byron gets in my build a lot faster than a Kyle Larson does. But with that being said, William Byron, Christopher Bell, SVG are absolutely going to be very, very heavily owned. Just saying. So, his practice speed's 23rd, 16th. I mean, they weren't bad. His averages are not bad. He has 2 wins at road courses. He's not phenomenal. He's not great. And actually, this year he's been a little bit on the disappointing side, to be perfectly honest. Even though I know he's leading the points. He's just quietly doing what he's due. I don't know. Tyler Reddick, 9,700. Talking about somebody who's having a rough year compared to years past. Tyler Reddick's $9,700 starting in 22nd. His practice speeds were not what I expected. 18th in single lap, 11th in 5 lap in the first run, 32nd and 20th in the second run. He's got 3 road course wins, but most of those happened back in the first year of this next gen era. Since then, he's been okay. He's got a 10.2 average finish. I'm not saying he sucks, but he has not been dominant the way he started with the next gen era. His practice speeds almost kind of follow the average line, within about a half a second, which is fine on a road course. I mean, we're talking 95.5 seconds. Being a half second off is pretty good. Second one, he was fine. A little slow for lap 8, but that's okay. But honestly, it kind of appears that he's kind of where he qualified. So I don't know how much we really move here. Let's say starting in 22nd, let's say he gets his average finish at 12th. What does that look like? And is it enough? I don't think it is. 12th, it's 45.5 for 45.5. He's going to need to finish better. He's going to need to finish 8th. So Tyler Reddick, 22nd to 8th. I mean, potentially, but the problem is you've got to pick and choose where you want to be. So my honest opinion is if you're kind of like Matt, Family Man, Family Man, if you're looking to possibly be a little contrarian, I think Tyler Reddick he's going to be owned, but he's not going to be as heavily owned as Christopher Bell or William Byron. You can almost build a lineup with a Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick, and that probably is going to be, both those drivers are probably going to be 30% or less owned. So you're going to be, in a little bit better shape. You'll be a little more contrarian. Chase Elliott starting in the 12th position, $9,500. He was 16th in single lap and 6th in 5 lap consecutive average, and 12th and 8th. Very consistent practice speeds. Kind of like his teammates. They were a little up and down throughout practice, but pretty much kind of followed the average line fairly closely. Still not as fast as SVG. And he was pretty much faster than the average in the second practice. But starting in 12th, Chase Elliott's going to need some help. He's going to need some guys to have a little bit of trouble up front, or he's going to have to gain some track position on restarts and those types of things, which, Chase Elliott's done an okay job at that. But from 12th to 4th, that's only 54 points. I'm not sure he has 14 fast laps. Could break that down to 10. 52.5. So, do we think he can get to 3rd? He's going to need to get to at least 2nd or 3rd at 9,500. And that, and once again, we're back to the scenario of we're looking at the first 5 guys all being very expensive, all with paths realistic paths to making the optimal lineup. Honestly, I think so far out of everybody in the group, Kyle Larson has the largest uphill climb to making the optimal lineup. Second on that list is probably Chase Elliott. Third is probably SVG. The two easiest to make the optimal lineups right now are William Byron and Christopher Bell, which are both place differentials, but they also both could end up with top tens. Next in line here, AJ Allmendinger, $9,300. Finally qualified 8th. So first practice session, I almost thought AJ was going to cry. If you haven't watched the practice session, go back and watch the practice replay. And when AJ comes in after whatever laps he did, 10, 12 laps or whatever, the disgust and disappointment you can see on AJ's face was almost like he was in shock on how slow he was. He was 30th in single lap, 16th in 5 lap. And this is the guy that's supposed to be the road course ringer. So, and now he goes out and qualifies and starts in 8th. I mean, if we look at the practice speeds, yeah, he was not even average. He was average to start the first 5 laps, but then was lower than average for those last laps. Where most of these guys have improved after by lap 5, AJ was getting worse. Now, the second practice, he was still just about average. And he goes out and qualifies a little bit better than average. And also, if we look, AJ's average finish at road courses is 15th right now. Yeah, 15.1 for the 5 racers we're comparing to. He doesn't even have a top 5 and only has 2 top 10s out of these 5 road courses. Now, 45 total starts, he's still just at a 15th place average finish. I think AJ's kind of in the same boat, honestly, as Kyle Larson. Neither one of them have shown me that they have top 5 speed. They both have top 5 talent. They haven't had top 5 speed. And starting in 8th, if you just get to 3rd, that's 49 points. I mean, he's going to need to win from 8th place. Now, we don't necessarily, I mean, at $9,300, you kind of need him to win. It's a little pricey to not win and get above or close to that 55-point threshold. Second, I just don't think it cuts it. It gets close. The optimal line starts to come down as the price comes down, but between Kyle Larson and AJ Allmendinger, they both have a really tough uphill climb to making that top 6 in points. Now, is 51 points in the top 15 in points? Absolutely. But it's a good cash play. You could easily mix and match AJ Allmendinger and Kyle Larson in a cash lineup. And I have no problem with that. I just don't play a lot of cash lineups. Ross Chastain. Trackhouse has shown up at this road course determined to win. And Daniel Suarez won the Xfinity race earlier today. Trackhouse really doesn't have a team. But Suarez is Trackhouse driver. And did win, coming from 39th place. Bound and determined to win. And good win for him. But Ross Chastain, $9,000, starting in 3rd, was top 10 speed in both practices. In fact, he was top 2 speed in the second practice. But his practice speeds were way out there. He definitely had a couple laps where he was definitely struggling for speed. I don't know if he got stuck behind somebody or was trying some different lines. But then he came back and he loosely followed the average line. But still, his teammate, SVG, was much better. And that's what I was saying earlier. There were very few drivers that consistently had the speed SVG had. That's why I just go, this is just lined up really, really well for SVG to have a phenomenal day. And then if we look at Ross's second practice speed, much faster than average, much faster than SVG, then kind of slows up a little bit, follows loosely the average line. Was faster at the beginning and a little bit slower than the average towards the end. But starting in third, ugh. And this you have to go back and think, okay, Ross Chastain and SVG both are with Trackhouse. How hard is Ross going to push? Ross is locked into the playoff. SVG's not. I'm not saying that the team order is going to come across the air and be like, hey, your teammate needs this win more than you do. But I guarantee there's been quiet holler talk that Ross knows probably what the deal is. Now, if something happens to SVG, naturally, he slips in a corner, he misses a turn, he has a slow pit stop, Ross isn't going to just give the lead up. But Ross is probably also not going to fight SVG real hard. And also starting in third, Ross is going to, with the win, Ross is going to go for those stage points. And if he has that opportunity to take the first in that stage, he absolutely is going to do that, which will put him deeper in the field. So the Ross Chastain play, I know Ross would like to get a win, but realistically, if I'm telling a story on how this race plays out tomorrow without any major incidences, Ross Chastain doesn't win. And I'm not sure starting in third and finishing in third without something happen plays. Because Ross is also going to go for stage points, which is going to put him back in the field. So start in third, and let's say he follows SVG to a second place finish. But let's say he leads the 5 laps. We did this with somebody else. 49.65. At $9,000, that gets real close. But probably just like AJ starting in 8th, that's just not probably going to be quite enough. So I don't mind the Ross Chastain play because I think if SVG slips at all, Ross is going to take advantage of that. But I don't think Ross pushes the issue other than on restarts. Ross has made up a ton of positions on restarts so far this year. So is Ryan Blaney. But Ross has been, in the last couple of races, been really, really good with gaining position on restarts. So, I mean, if Ross goes out and gets the lead early, he's not going to just relinquish it. Because he wants the stage points. Now we get to stage 3, it becomes a little different. Kyle Busch, $8,800. Will Kyle Busch spin this week? It's a weekly occurrence with Kyle Busch. Starting 11th, he was 15th in single lap, 12th in 5 lap. He was 28th and 16th in the second practice. 1 top 5 in the last 5 road courses, 2 top 10s. Practice speeds were okay. Second practice speeds were okay. Starting 11th, there's not a whole lot here for me to be like, ooh, I see some opportunity. And this car, he doesn't like this car. So let's say he gets up to 5th. He's not going to lead 20 laps. And he's probably going to have like 3 fast laps. That's 46.35 by finishing in 5th. Can he get there by finishing... Well, first, can he get there by finishing in 1st? I think so. 56.35. Second gives you 52.35, which at $8,800 probably would be enough. Third, 50.35. He's going to have to be at least top 3. So do we think Kyle Busch is going to be top 3 with these speeds? I don't think so. He's going to have a lot of things go his way. So I'm kind of on the bus of fading Kyle Busch. I think he's much more of a I'm going to finish where I started, which is only 33.35 points and at $8,800. That's not going to make the top 15. I mean, it could possibly, but that's you don't really want to be there. I will probably fade off with the Kyle Busch play a little bit. It won't be a complete fade. I'll probably have him in 8% of my lineups, which will probably be about even on the field. Danielle Suarez, our host for this weekend, welcoming all of us to Mexico. $8,600. The winner of the Xfinity race earlier this year has a fair amount of experience at this track. He definitely has the crowd behind him. You could easily hear the crowd way over the cars on the final 2 laps of the Xfinity race today. Quite impressive. Would be a huge hit for Daniel Suarez to win back-to-back in Mexico. But that's so hard to do. I mean, he's good at this race course, but his practice speeds were average. 12th to 13th, 9th to 10th. And if we look at the last 5 races, he has no top 10s, only 3 top 20s. 35 total starts. He's got the 1 win at Sonoma a few years ago and a 20.4 average finish. I don't love it. I mean, his practice speeds were much more average than super fast. He fired off pretty quick in the second practice session, but then fell off pretty quickly. Starting at 16th, I think that's kind of... I mean, he might be able to get up to 8th and at 8,600. Is that going to be enough? Probably. That probably actually would be enough if he can get up to a top 8. Wrong way. 16th to 8th. And yeah, 2 fast laps, 44.9. Nope, that's not going to be enough. You have to top 5 it. 4. Probably 4th or better. So could SVG win? Ross Chastain finished 2nd. Daniel Suarez finished 3rd or 4th. I mean, sure, they all have shown up with decent speed. Decent qualifying efforts. But yeah, Daniel's going to need to get to at least probably top 5, starting in 16th. With 2 fast laps, not leading any laps at all. I mean, it's a play. I don't mind. I might even have just a Trackhouse play, and kind of fill in the gaps around it. But in my opinion, that's pretty tough. I think you're looking. I think you could run a Daniel Suarez and a SVG. I think you could run a Daniel Suarez and a Ross Chastain. I'm not too sure I want to run all 3 of them together. And next in line here is the most consistent road course driver we have. Chris Buescher, $8,400, starting in 16th. And he was actually really pretty decent in practice. 6th in single lap, 14th in 5-lap consecutive average. And the second practice, he was 5th and 6th for those, respectively. He does have 1 win, which happened at the Glen last year, where he beat SVG. Hold on. They both can't be starting in 16th. I messed something up. Hold on. Where is Buescher starting in 16th and Suarez? Oh, Suarez is starting in 10th. That makes things even worse. Yeah, I will probably be a fade on Suarez. Like I said, I'll probably still run a lineup with the 3 Trackhouse, just because I think it'd be kind of an interesting storyline, and I like storylines. So he would need to finish 3rd behind Ross and those guys, and it gets you to 48.9. Chris Buescher starting in 16th. Okay, but Chris Buescher is also one of the most consistent road course drivers, and has the best average finish of all road course drivers with a 9.6. His practice speeds are a little wonky. If we kind of take this first half out, they're kind of consistent. They're definitely just up and down. Now his The second practice is much better and much more consistent and actually slightly better than average, but follows the average line fairly well. And I kind of like to see that a little bit more. The first one was a little bit wonky, but like I said, everybody was a little bit wonky going into this thing. But once again, do we think Chris Buescher can make it up to from 16th? I mean, we just did this calculation with Suarez. No laps led and fast laps of 5. 58.25 for a second. But if we think you can mix it up to 5, it's 52.25 at $8,400, potentially. Oh, and Family Man says Chris Buescher has a 7.3 running position in the next gen era road courses. Love Buescher. Yeah. Over the last five road courses, it's a, what did I say, 9.6? Yeah. So if he can get to a 7.3, probably 49 points. If he gets to the 7th, 48.25. Borderline. It's a decent cash play. It's a little tough in tournaments. And as Family Man said, he's got the best average finish in the next gen era, which people are going to probably play him a little bit more because of that stat alone. And it's like I said, his practice speeds were all pretty much top 10. So Buescher is going to get some love and get some ownership. It's not a sneaky play. It's a solid play. It's definitely a solid cash play. I just don't know if it's not a sneaky play by any means. So I don't mind the play, but I just don't think it's very sneaky. I'll have ownership in him. I'll probably have about 20%, 25%. But I don't think it's going to be a sneaky play by any means. Just kind of like Michael McDowell, I do not think it's going to be a sneaky play either. I mean, starting the weekend, I always think Michael McDowell could be potentially a sneaky play, but I don't think he's going to be a sneaky play this weekend. He's got the win at Indy. He's got an 8th place average finish over the 5 races that we're comparing to, and I haven't seen what his next gen era stats are. He's had a couple of falters at some road courses, but he's very, very consistent, and he does have a win here in the on this circuit. It was not in a NASCAR car, but it was in on this course. He was very quick in the first practice, a little inconsistent, but below average on all of his laps. Andrew says, I've heard a lot of people talking about Buescher might be under the field. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to go after Buescher. I think a lot of people are probably going to go after Michael McDowell also. Like I said, he was very quick in the very first practice session. He has talked a lot about how he has kind of manifested wanting a win at this track. So there's a lot of play here, but it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like a Larson play. And which one do I think wins over each other, Michael McDowell or Kyle Larson? I'm probably going to go with Kyle Larson. But I mean, it's a pretty even fight. Actually, Michael McDowell was a little bit faster in practice. So, but they're both, I mean, one starting in 5th, one starting in 6th. It's just, if you think SVG is going to win, I don't think you necessarily put a Michael McDowell in there. I think if you think SVG is going to win, the other 5 drivers are almost all place differential plays. I just don't think it's a start up front, finish up front type of play if you're going to take the pole setter. Or even a Ross Chastain starting in 3rd. I don't see a play where 1st and 3rd make the optimal lineup. In fact, I can kind of let you know. Where's that sheet? 1 second. Gotta find it. But road courses, this is the top 15. Does not have pricing on it. I always make this too big. But this shows, oops, get rid of this. this shows. Whoops. What am I doing? I got all sorts of stuff going on. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't shut you guys down. Still there? There you are. All right. So this shows starting position and their points and their finishing position. So green is either pole or outside pole. And Martin Truex Jr. started in second, and Ross Chastain started in first. Tyler Reddick first, Bubba Wallace second. SVG first, second. So this kind of tells me where the pole and outside pole sitter play. And what this is showing me and showing you is you could take one or the other, but taking both does not play super well on road courses. In fact, of the 5 road courses I've looked at, none of them, of the 10 road courses I've looked at, none of them have both the pole sitter and the outside pole sitter. So it's one or the other. Both of them don't typically play together when it comes to road courses. You can have some plays on some ovals where you've got enough, like on a Martinsville, where you've got 500 laps, where you could play both, and they both end up making the optimal lineup. At road courses, there's not enough points out there for both of them to get it. And I kind of lean towards that for the top 5. So if I've got one of the top 5 drivers, I'm probably going to go outside the top 5 for everyone else. I'm not going to run 2 top 5 drivers. Austin Cindric, next in line here, 20th. I actually really liked Austin Cindric's practice speeds. He was 4th in single lap, 22nd in 5-lap consecutive average. He fell off a little bit in the 5-lap average. Then he came back in the second practice. He was 7th and 3rd consecutive. And then, so his practice speeds, it's kind of like everybody. Everybody kind of came in a little bit fast. They slowed up, and then they sped back up again. They kind of saw what their car wanted and needed, came in for pits, and improved. The only one who really just stayed consistent is SVG. Michael McDowell did pretty well. But Austin Cindric really kind of fired off fast and then just fell right in line with the average, which is fine. I mean, if you can fire off fast starting at 20th and you can do it 2 times and you can make up 5 spots, it gets you up to 10th. What's his average finish? 19.4, 14.4, so we'll say 17th. That won't cut it, at least for DraftKings. But how far up does he need to climb for him to be playable? I mean, a 5th gets you 58 points. And because he's now at $8,000, the optimal line has moved. It's probably about 50 points. So we can come all the way down to 9th. And 10 fast laps might be a little on the excessive side. Oops. Let's go to 2. So 9th doesn't quite cut it. 8th, 7th. 7th will cut it. So Austin Cindric, starting in 20th, would need to get a 7th place finish and have 2 fast laps. Doesn't need to lead any laps. But pretty much a top 10 finish. This is one of the plays that I kind of like, that's not starting so far back that it could be difficult to get up front. He also had really good practice speeds. And Austin Cindric's one of the better road course racers. I could easily see him getting a top 10 finish starting in 20th. He does have the win on his side. So he not necessarily is looking for a win. He's looking for a solid finish, and he's looking for potential stage points. So he might play some games with stage breaks, and trying to get some stage points. But he's kind of sitting in that weird spot. He could kind of go either way with it. He doesn't really have to necessarily get a ton of track position throughout the race on each restart or manipulating it with pit stops. I think he can kind of just race his way and get into the top 10, which then maybe get himself a top 7. But we'll see. I mean, I don't mind the Austin Center play. I think he could be a top 10 finisher, which would be enough. And I think he probably gets a little bit overlooked. I think he probably ends up in the 10 to 12 to 13% owned. I don't think he's going to be in the 20% or greater owned. There's not enough place differential here for him to pull a lot. So this isn't like a Byron or Bell type of play. Chase Briscoe, not starting on the pole. After 3 straight weeks, Chase Briscoe misses the pole. $7,900, but he was fast enough in first practice. He almost was able to get there. He was second fastest in the first practice with 8th in 5-lap consecutive average, 14th and 22nd in the second practice. He's got a 20th place average finish, kind of 2021. Starting in 19th, it kind of indicates he's probably going to finish where he starts. Now, a lot of those races were with Stewart Haas Racing, only one with Joe Gibbs at Coda, and I don't think that went particularly well. I can't remember exactly where he finished. I don't think it was anything special. His practice speeds were a little bit like Kyle Larson's, a little wonky, and then kind of got better, and then they definitely made some improvements towards the end, and I think that's why they came back out and were able to fire off pretty quickly. Following the average line, or a little bit better than average. Still not as fast as SVG, but starting in 19th, and if we think SVG is going to win, we're just looking for place differential. So how far up does Mr. Briscoe need to finish? He's been finishing races much better recently. The problem has been starting from the pole and, dropping to 6th, which is a decent finish. But if you're starting from the pole, it doesn't usually quite cut it. He's not going to need any laps, or if he does, it's going to be few and far between. He's going to have 15. He's probably going to have 3. Finishes in 4th, it definitely puts it there. I don't need him to finish in 4th. 8th, he's going to need to finish 7th or better. So, kind of in the same boat as Austin Cindric. Both kind of starting 19th and 20th. Both of them need to kind of get up to 7th. I think both of them are easily capable of doing it. I think the Briscoe and Cindric are both interchangeable. I think you could easily just run a lineup, SVG or whoever you think is going to start in the top 5, finish in the top 5, win, whatever, and then you build up your place differentials. These are kind of the sweet spot, in my opinion, for place differentials, because I think they're both capable of getting into the top 10. But I'm not sure. There'll be a lineup or two that I could easily run both of them. Not worried about that. But I think you can interchange both of them because they're $100 apart from each other. Alex Bowman, $7,700, starting in 29th. Yes, he won at Chicago earlier this year. He did that with a little bit of luck. To be perfectly honest, I went back and kind of reviewed it. He did not lead a whole lot of laps. There was a lot of attrition in that race, and he happened to be at the right spot with the right pit position or pit stops. So a lot of strategy got played into Alex Bowman winning. Alex Bowman is not a bad road course racer. He's got a 12.2 average finish over the 5 races we're looking at, and 14.5 over his 36 total starts at road courses. Not bad. Starting in 29th, we've got room to run. Alex Bowman is still very, very sore from the hit that he took at Michigan. And he should be. That was a hellacious hit. That hit was probably as hard, if not harder, than the one that killed Dale Earnhardt. So he's definitely going to be sore for quite a while. Somebody is in Mexico City as a replacement driver if needed. I can't remember who it is. But either way, you put a replacement driver in who has not turned in a lot of laps, unless it's Connor Zillage, which it could be. Both of them are Chevy drivers, and Zillage drives for pretty much a Hendrick Xfinity team with Junior. So it could be. I don't know if Zillage left Mexico yet or not. I'm sure he probably stuck around. But Alex Bowman starting in 29th, I don't don't think he's going to have much more of that in him physically. I could be wrong, but I mean, his practice speeds were never really got much better than average. Yeah, he's got some place differential. I just don't see it. I'm going to be a fade off of Alex Bowman, and I think a lot of other people will be also. I mean, some people will naturally gravitate to him because there is some natural potential place differential, but I don't think this is a great spot for Alex Bowman. Not that he's not capable. I think with his injury and these practice speeds just show me that there's some lingering stuff happening, and it would not surprise me if after stage 1 he goes, yeah, this isn't smart. I need to get out. So, I mean, we'll put this on the calculator so everyone can see it, and you can make your own decision. But I'm a fade on it. He's not going to have 10 fast laps. He'll be lucky to have 1. So to get to 50 points, he's going to need to finish 12th, 11th, probably 11th. Yeah, he's going to need to finish 11th, starting 29th. Now, a healthy Alex Bowman, normal road course, yeah, Alex Bowman all day. It's a great play. But these practice speeds show me that they are really struggling, and I think it's much more Alex Bowman and the injury are struggling than the car or the setup. He did not improve very much in the second practice and then didn't qualify that well. So I think there's some lingering things happening. I'm going to be a fade, but what I mean by fade is instead of running 20-25% with him starting in 29th, because I think this normal circumstances is a great play. But I think with the injury, I don't think I'm going to fade off of it because I don't think it's a good play. So that's more of just a gut check play. All indications are if he were healthy, I think 11th place finish is absolutely doable. And it would be probably a pretty solid play, but I think with the injury, it's not. And there's also, you're running a risk that he gets a substitute driver. And then at that point, all bets are off. Unless it's Zilich. But if Zilich comes into the car, Bowman gets the points. So maybe you take Bowman thinking that might be the case. But Zilich didn't turn any practice laps. So I don't know. Carson Osor, $7,500, starting in the 23rd position. Carson's actually quietly a pretty good little road course racer. He finished, second or third at the Glen last year. And he did that on his own. He raced his way up there. That was not a huge... When he finally got up there was some attrition towards the back and the middle, but he was already up front when that all transpired. So Carson Osavar probably definitely somebody that could be in play starting in 23rd. Practice speeds, he didn't do a whole lot of laps. That's the part that slightly concerns me about the Hocevar play. And I think he probably gets faded off a little bit because this potentially is a spot where you could quietly pay back a Carson Hocevar. So a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. could easily just, oops, I got into that corner a little strong and spin Carson out. So I could see it kind of going both ways. I'll have a little bit of ownership, probably 15%, maybe. So what does he need to get to starting in 23rd? All right, 23rd. Well, if he gets to second, he definitely is going to get there. Let's say he has 2 fast laps. But to get to 50, nope, needs to be 7th, 8th, 9th. 9th place. Carson Osavar, 9th place, gets you to 50 points with 2 fast laps. I think it's doable. And it might get overlooked a little bit. Might not either. There's some place differential there. Yeah, I mean, I could easily see playing the Carson Hocevar in 23rd, a Briscoe in 19th, and an Austin Cindric in 20th, along with an SVG. That's kind of the lineups I kind of would gravitate towards for this, because I don't think there's going to be a ton of ownership with those guys, because I think some people are going to gravitate probably to this next driver. Ty Gibbs, but he's starting in fourth. But his practice speeds were phenomenal. And until they had their melee happen at the Xfinity race, he and Connor Zilic were class of the field. $7,400 starting in fourth, third and third in the first practice, third and first in the second practice. I mean, his practice speeds were solid. I mean, not far off from SVG and sometimes a little bit faster than SVG. Did more laps than SVG. Second practice, not quite as good. But he also, if you happen to see it, he spun out in the start of the second practice because they moved the bump stops and he bottomed out and the car spun out. That necessarily wasn't Ty's fault. That was more of the crew's fault. They fixed it and he came back and he fired off pretty quick. I mean, as you saw, he was first and third in the second practice session. Starting in fourth, though, this is one this is a play once again. You don't play a Ty Gibbs with an SVG, even at $7,400. It just doesn't play. There's no place differential potential here. It's either first with laps led or bust. Because he's not worried about stage points. Well, I take that back. He's borderline could want stage points. He's right on that cusp, but he kind of is almost in a must win to get in type of scenario. But as you can see, if he doesn't he's going to have a couple fast laps. He was very fast in practice, so we'll give him 3. 43.5 to finish in third. To finish in first, well, he would lead laps. Second, 45.3. Not going to cut it. He's going to need to finish in first, or let's say he falls to second, but he leads 12 laps out of the 100. 48.3. At 7,400, this line that's probably in play, but he's going to need to lead 12 laps. And, it's, if you think he's going to lead 12 laps, you can also think that he's probably stands a chance at winning, which would then throw the SVG play out. And that's why I said the SVG play doesn't play with Ty Gibbs. It doesn't play with a Ross Chastain. It doesn't play with anybody starting in the top 5. And neither does a Ty Gibbs and a Ross Chastain. 2 drivers in the top 5 doesn't make sense. You can have a 9th place start and a 4th place start, and it could end up working out. It's a little tough, but it could work out. Ryan Blaney, $7,200 starting in 18th. I mean, when was the last time you saw Ryan Blaney at $7,200 to begin with? But that tells you he's got a 16.8 average finish for the last 5 road courses. 3 top 10s, not bad. No top 5s. He does have a win on a road course. I think that was at Charlotte or Daytona back closer to COVID. I can't remember exactly, but he's not he's not the one that you go and look for road courses. 14.8 and 16, so 16th place, 15th place average finish. Practice speeds were better in the second session than the first session. Starting in 18th, we've got some room to run. Here's his practice speeds. He was not good in the first practice. Second practice, he was better. He was better than average, and fired off better than SVG to start. And starting in 18th, put it on the calculator and see where it goes. 18th and 10th. All right. I really need to zero these out each week, but no laps led, no fast laps. I mean, everybody kind of gets a fast lap at a road course. So 2. 10th place finish, 42.9. At 7,200, it's probably not enough. He's going to need to probably finish 7th. Yeah, 7th might cut it at 7,200. So, if you play the story, Ryan Blaney could be substituted with Austin Cindric. He could be substituted with Chase Briscoe. He could be substituted with Carson Hocevar. And you could potentially run all four of those in a grouping with an SVG or a Ty Gibbs or a Kyle Larson. But yeah, an 18th place finish, if you think it's going to be a top 10 day, you could easily play that Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, Briscoe type of play. And it plays. Joey Logano, the other last Penske driver, starting in 9th. Like I said, the narrative, he always tends to perform well at these new tracks that they go to or haven't been to in a long time or been repaved or whatever. So, but I don't know if this one is quite there. So he's only got one win on a road course, and in the last 5 races on road courses, he's got 1 top 10 and 2 top 20s. Starting in 9th, I honestly think he's starting too far up. So, yeah, Victorious, I agree with you. Logano is probably a fade. But just remember, there is a narrative that at these new events, he does tend to turn it up a little bit. Second practice speeds were pretty good. First ones were wonky. Everybody's first ones were wonky. Second one was a little bit better than average, then fell off a little bit, but not bad. Starting the 9th position, this is a tough hill to climb. You can probably, if you think he can get to a top 3, he might play. Let's see, 47.45 at $7,000. That might play. But you're asking Joey Logano to finish 3rd. Like I said, he hasn't had a top 5 at a road course in a while. D Pope, here we go. Yeah. Oh gosh, you came in just in time for the Joey Logano. Yeah, I took way too much Joey Logano last week, and it cost me badly. Not falling for the trap again this week. I'm a fade off of Joey Logano, even though there is the narrative out there. Bubba Wallace, 25th. 2311's just been slightly off. Bubba's been better than Tyler Reddick. Let's put it that way. That tells you how weird and upside down 2311 is right now. But I don't blame them. They're in a massive lawsuit with NASCAR. $6,800. Starting 25th. His practice speeds were a little bit better than that. 24th in single lap, 19th in 5-lap consecutive average, 18th and 13th in the second practice. Got a 15 to 22nd place average finish. Bubba Wallace has never been a road course guy, but he has been improving at road courses lately. And I don't know why I don't have 2 practice sessions. I just had the first practice session for Bubba. I don't know what happened to the second one. I'm not going to go and fix it right now, but he was slower in the first practice session. Starting at 25th, average finish, let's say 17th. 25th to 17th, I mean, it's not going to be enough. But we'll put it on the old calculator here and take it for a spin and see what we come up with. 17th. Not 1 fast lap. That's all you get. 34.5. That barely gets you to the top 15. He's going to need to finish top 10. Yep. He's going to need to get to 10th or better to be in play. And I think that's kind of a tough... It's a little bit tough with the practice speeds that he was showing in his average finishes. I don't think he gets there. I'll have a little bit of ownership of Bubba Wallace, but I'm going to fade off. Somebody mentioned Todd Gilliland earlier as being a sneaky play. Okay. Yeah. He was 10th in single lap and 7th in 5-lap consecutive average in the first practice. He was first fast in the first practice. He's got a 12.4 average finish over the last 5 races, 3 top 10s out of the 5 races, no top 5s. Starting in 7th, he's definitely going to need to get to the top 5. And he's only done that once out of 19 total road course starts, and that was at Indy when they all decided to wreck 15 times in the first corner on restarts. I'm not saying it's not possible. We could see the same thing potentially here at Mexico, but what does 10th and 7th in practice look like? all over the place. That's really inconsistent, really wonky. A lot of, like I said, everybody's been kind of that way. One of the few is SVG, who has been very quick at the very beginning. That's why I said I think this lines up as a potential stink show for SVG. And then he was fastest in the second practice, and yeah, he was, but he did 5 laps, and he pretty much said, "Okay, I'm done." Um, I'm not sure. I think he was setting his car up for qualifying, and he qualified well. He qualified in 7th. Once again, we're in the scenario of, do you think he's gonna win? If you do, then you need to go place a bet. Put it that way. Even if he wins, finishes in first, has 4 fast laps, and leads that final lap. It's 53.05. Yeah, that probably makes the optimal. Do you think Todd Gilliland's going to win, though? I don't. I think a really good day is 5th. 43.05. That's 6,700. That's not a decent. That's a decent cash play. That's not a good tournament play. But I will say that it would be contrarian. It will be sneaky because a lot of people are going to fade off of him. The only reason they wouldn't fade off of him is because he was fastest. He was really fast in practice, but he was really fast for a lap here and a lap here. Other than that, he was average at best, and then he fired off real quick and still was slower than SVG. But we're talking about him finishing first to be an optimal option and a cash option at best, if not. So I'll probably fade off of it. Oh, Brad Keselowski. Brad's had the worst luck at road courses. That's honestly probably but you make your own luck too. So I get it. But starting in 30th, I mean there's room to run. He was 20th and 17th in practice 1, 13th and 21st in practice 2. I mean, practice speeds were like everyone else's except for SVGs. They were just kind of all over the board. They're searching for speed. They're figuring out the track. Second practice was a little bit better, but he was still slower than average. But he's starting in 30th. At $6,600, I mean, 50 points would be really generous. I don't think he necessarily has to get to 50, but what does it look like? I mean, no, he's not going to have that many fast laps. Let's go to... Everybody gets one. Everybody gets a fast lap. 9th gets you 56 points. Well, we don't need him to finish 9th then. 13th? 13th might cut it at 6,600. I mean, I think the Brad Keselowski play is in play. He's been a little more consistent in the last few races. You know, I don't think he's going to win. I'm not sure he even gets a top 10, but I'm not sure I need him to get a top 10. I mean, heck, if he gets 11th, that's 51 points. That definitely puts him in the optimal lineup conversation. I mean, it's still, I think 11th is kind of an uphill climb. 15th gets you to 43. I think that's not bad. I don't think it's great. Ryan Preece, I mean, good on him, but I think he way outkicked his coverage. And the only reason you would ever take Ryan Preece, and I've kind of beat this to death, is if you think SVG is going to have a problem and you think Ryan Preece can get out front and lead a bunch of laps. Because his practice speeds were very inconsistent. Once again, like everyone else, I get it. And then he was kind of just followed the average line in the second practice. Starting in second, he also spun after his qualifying lap. So he put down a heater and then couldn't even control it going into the turn after the start-finish line. Now, it was an alternate start-finish line. He was trying to slow down for practice or for pit road. I get it, but starting in second, I think Ryan Preece is out of play. So I have to agree with Victorious, and yeah, Preece is out. So if you're looking for something that's really contrarian, take him. Also, super contrarian would be Ryan Truex. The only way Ryan Truex becomes in play is if you honestly think that this becomes absolute chaos multiple times, because his practice speeds were awful. Yeah, I mean, he's not even in the same ballpark. I mean, he's a second and a half to 2 seconds worse than SVG. Yeah, I know they're running a 90-second lap, so he'll stay in the lead lap. So if you think that he's going to be around at the end, and we're going to have 15 cars go a lap down because of damage, then he might come into play. Because he's starting 36. 15 spots takes him to 21st. So, and I think he stays out of all the mess. And I think it absolutely just becomes an attrition race. So 15 takes him to 20th. I mean, that puts him in play because he doesn't need 55. He needs 50. So, yeah, I mean, if you think there's going to be 16 cars of attrition for Ryan Truex just to make it around to be lucky, or have a green-white checkered melee and Ryan Truex sneaks through at the end and gets a top 20, then he's in play. I'm not saying he's not in play, but he's going to have a good pit crew. He's going to just hang out in the back all day. He's going to hang out in the lead lap. So unless they have a failure of some type, then yeah, he's in play. I don't love the play. It's his first start, and that never tends to go very well. Austin Dillon starting in 21st, 32nd and single lap 30th in five laps. Kind of the same thing, 20th and 17th in the second practice. He's got one top 20 in the last 5 road courses with a 30.2 average finish. Out of 40 total road course starts, he has 2 top 10s, no top 5s, and only half the time he's finishing in the top 20. So not super great, and we look at his practice speeds, they aren't very good either, and he qualified in 21st. I think that's going to be where he finishes, if not probably worse. His average finish is 23rd, so I'm not even going to put on the calculator. Austin Dillon is a fade for me. Noah Gragson wrecked in the second or third lap he did 3 laps of practice, and they have had to go to a backup car, so he did not qualify. In fact, I think he did, but he still has to go to the rear, so he's going to fall back 2 spots. Big deal, whatever. And he pretty much took the qualifying session as a practice session. That's why he had a qualifying lap, but it wasn't good. Yeah, I mean, this is if you're going to take a Noah Gragson, substitute him in every once in a while or swap him out with Ryan Truex. They both have the best coin flip chance of making a potential optimal lineup. And they're probably the 2 cars that are starting the furthest back that, in my opinion, have any shot of making up any positions. Because I think Cody Ware is going to be even a worst case scenario. And we're going to need a lot of attrition for Cody Ware to come into play. Even though, actually, that's really where Cody Ware is a little bit better, because his dad, that's what his dad loves, is he loves road course racing, and just happened to get into NASCAR. Justin Haley starting in 17th. I mean, before the weekend even happened, I was like, you know what? It's about time for Justin Haley to have a good week. And then he comes out and just stinks in practice. I mean, other than his really good finish at Chicago 2 years ago at the street course, starting in 17th, I think he outkicked his coverage. Especially when we look at his practice speeds, he never got below average. So starting in 17th, okay, a little tick right there. He's worse than average. Well, he's qualified better than average. So I'm a fade on Justin Haley. He's starting too far up. I think he just goes backwards. It's not worth putting it on the calculator. Zane Smith starting in 24th is an interesting play, but he was not very strong in practice, 26th in single lap, 24th in 5-lap consecutive average, 23rd in the second practice. He does have one top 5 out of the last 5 road courses. Okay. But that was his best finish. I can't remember if that was, I think it was Coda earlier this year. So, I mean, the front row motorsports guys are decent at road courses. I mean, they did get the win last year, year before last with Michael McDowell. I mean, if we look at his practice speeds, they're like everyone else, they're just all kind of all over the place. Second practice session was kind of the same boat. Starting in 24th, though, he's got some room to run. He's going to need a little help with some attrition. So it's just, and I think it's where you kind of build these guys in. 5 laps, it's good. Everybody gets one fast lap. Fifth, it's phenomenal. It's 58.45, but we don't need that. I don't think he does that. 10th at $6,000, just under 50, puts him into play. If you think he can make it into the top 10, which, he's had some races where he's done that lately. So maybe he's in play. Josh Berry in 13th. He's definitely outperforming this year anything that he has done in the Cup Series since he's been in the Cup Series. The Wood Brothers are bringing good cars. Penske's setting up good cars for him. I cannot trust Josh Berry starting in 13th when he has a 28.4 average finish. Has never finished in the top 20 in the Cup Series on a road course. He's got a 25.4 average finish. He had a not so great first practice session. He did fire off and got one good lap in there. Second practice was better than average. And starting in 13th, I just don't trust it. So Victorious, I would probably add Barry to the list of people that I'm going to avoid. It'll be sneaky. His second practice was decent enough. He could possibly get a top 10. We'll put it on the chart just to kind of see it. 5,900, he doesn't need to do a whole lot. Starting in 13th, let's say he gets a 9th and we'll be generous. We'll give him 3 fast laps. 40.35. I've already moved the optimal line down to 45. It might be an okay cash play, but even then it's a little risky for a cash play. But I know you got to save some money somewhere. I just don't think, what is he going to need to finish to remotely be in the conversation? A 5th place finish probably puts him close to the conversation. A 3rd definitely does it. But yeah, he's going to need to finish 7th or better. So if you think Josh Berry is a 7th place or better, then it's worth taking the shot on. Eric Jones starting in 14th. I think he outkicked his coverage. He's 27th and 26th in the first practice, 22nd and 12th in the second practice. And the first practice, just like everybody else's, looked like crud. Second practice, damn if he wasn't average. Pretty much just followed the average line completely. I think the average line was made for him. But starting in 14th, the average being 17th or 18th, you're not going to go up, you're not going to go back. He's been outperforming kind of like Barry, but I just don't really trust it when he's got a 28.4 average finish over the last 5 races we're looking at, a 19.5 over his total career, and he's starting in 14th. And his practice speeds are okay. They're not worthy enough to finish better than 14th. Cole Custer starting in 26th. He's got a little bit of room to run. First practice, like everyone else's, was a little wonky. Second practice, he was worse than average. But he's starting worse than average. So, if we're thinking average is 17th or 18th, put it on the chart. Take it for a spin. Let's see. Start in 26 and we finish in 17th, and he's already got the one given fast lap. 35.45. Well, that makes the top 15, but does not get close to optimal. I don't really love it. I could see less than 10% of my lineups, I'll take him. I won't be a complete zero fade. He's not a Catherine Legay, but I'm not going to have a whole lot. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 33rd is not a bad play, even though his practice speeds were awful. And most of his practice laps, these were the 5 laps out of his 21 laps that were faster than 97 seconds. Was only 5. Second practice, a little bit better. He had a total of 9 laps, and 6 of the 9 at least registered below the 97-second range. A little inconsistent. In fact, a lot inconsistent. That's why he's starting 33rd. But he's in play if you think there's going to be some attrition. Starting in 33rd, he doesn't need a whole lot to get. Finishes in 15th. That's 46.5 points. That probably puts him in the optimal lineup, or within a spot or two of the optimal lineup. So 5,500, yeah. I would rather take Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 33rd than Cole Custer starting in 26th. But with that being said, I think that probably is the case for most people. Riley Herbst starting in 15th, I have absolutely no interest in. Talk about super risky. So yeah, Victorious, you're absolutely right. Riley Herbst is out of play also for me. We'll look at his practice speeds. They were okay. Not great in the second practice. And then he goes out and qualifies in 15th. I'm not even going to put it on the chart because I don't think he beats it. And it's not good. John Hunter Nemechek starting in 32nd. I don't understand why John Hunter Nemechek can run this year really well on the ovals, or better than what he had been running last year on the ovals, and then show up at a road course and it's just abysmal. It was 28th and 29th in the first practice, 33rd and 25th in the second practice, and yeah, it showed on the chart. But starting in 32nd at 5,200, once again, it's not going to take a whole lot for him to get to 45 points. We just did it with Ricky Stenhouse. So I don't know if I love taking both of them, but I would definitely interchange the two of them. The 32nd to 20th, that's 35. That probably won't cut it. He's probably going to need to finish 16th. 13th is probably too many. 15th. Yeah, 15th place. 32nd to 15th. I think he's going to need a little bit of attrition to get there. Practice speeds weren't fast enough that showed me any of that. His average laps, or his average finishes, aren't there either. Ty Dillon starting in 28th. Practice speeds were not great. They were all probably 28th. And his average road courses is 28th and 25.4. He's got 7 top 20s, never finished in the top 10 on a road course. In the last 5 races, he definitely has not finished in the top 20 with a 28th place average finish. Not interested. Cody Ware starting in 34th. He was 35th and 34th and 30th in the second practice. Here's the speed charts. He's way up here with 2 laps and not even close down here. I am not interested in even remotely taking any Cody Ware, just like I'm about as interested in taking Catherine Legag at $4,800, starting 37th, shotgun in the field. Her practice speeds were last, and she didn't even register. Oh, she registered in the second practice for 2 laps. She's going to be a moving chicane for this race. I have no interest in taking it. The only way that she even comes into play is literally they pile it up like they do at Talladega in turn 1. And she was so slow on the start that she misses it. And even then, I'm not sure she misses it. She'll probably run over a bumper and cut a tire and hit the wall. I wish her the best of luck. I just don't think she's cut out for stock car racing. It's my personal opinion. There's some girls who are. I'm not saying a girl can't go do it, but just don't. I think she's honestly she's too old. She's 44 years old. I mean, Denny Hamlin's talking about retiring, and he's younger than her. Either way. Next, before I get myself into too much trouble, Christopher Bell is going to be super highly owned. Starting in 31st, he could easily win this race. I don't love it. My algorithm has Tyler Reddick as ranked second. I don't necessarily love that, but I definitely love the Christopher Bell, SVG, William Byron are all definitely in play. I do not like the Alex Bowman play at all. Busher is absolutely in play. Hocevar is I could interchange him. So yeah, like I was saying before, I think Carson Hocevar, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Zane, Austin, Briscoe, anybody in this group up here except for Bowman really are absolutely interchangeable with SVG. So the Busher, Hocevar, Blaney, Wallace, Smith, Cendric, Briscoe, you could play. I haven't run the calculator on it, but you can almost run any 5 of those combinations, maybe 4 of those combinations, an SVG, and then go down here to a Noah, a Ricky Stenhouse, a John Hunter Nemechek, or Ryan Truex. They would be cheap enough. And maybe even a Brett Keselowski. You could run 4 of these guys with an SVG and 1 of these guys, and I think it all fits and works. Not interested in Todd Gilliland. I'm not interested in Riley Herbst. I'm not interested in Justin Haley, Cole Custer, Austin Dillon. I'm not interested in Ryan Preece, Josh Berry, Ty Dillon, Cody Ware, Eric Jones, or Kathleen Legag. And I'm going to run an SVG. I'll run one of these other guys if I'm not running an SVG. And I'll just kind of interchange it. What was the point you had for optimal? For the higher priced guys, it was 55 points. So pretty much from SVG at 10,500 down to about 8,000, you need to be at 55 points. From about 8,000 to about 7,000 or 6,500, it probably needs to be about 50 points. And then anything less than 6,500, you could probably get away with round about 43 to 50 points. We'll go back up to the optimal lineups one more time to show those. I think you came in a little bit later, which is fine. Yeah, so here's the optimal lineups from the last 4 road courses. And on the higher end, it's Chris Buescher was at 54.9. He was $8,100. Alex Bowman snuck in with a 47.45 at 8,300. 55 for Christopher Bell at 9,000. 48 points for William Byron. And these are all pretty much guys that really didn't have any dominator points. It was finishing position, starting in 15th, finishing in 2nd. 48, or starting in 10th, finishing in 3rd, got 48 points for William Byron. Then up here, $9,800 SVG had 51 points, 56 points. Yes, I mean, if you pretty much, it's that 45 to 50 points gets you real close. 55 points or more is probably going to put you in the optimal. So, hopefully that answers your question, Andrew. Well, 2 hours and 13 minutes. I mean, it was a lot of data. It's 2 practice sessions, road course, new road course, everything else. Yeah, oops, I didn't fix that one. It's just a lot of information. Probably too much information. Kind of makes my head spin sometimes. And then I kind of have to whittle it all down. But, I think the route that I like is you take SVG and the middle of the field. Or you take a Larson, an Elliott, You could play contrarian and play a Michael McDowell or a Suarez or potentially a Ross or a Ty Gibbs. I don't think I played them with SVG. And then you could kind of get a little bit more creative. You could run like a Kyle Larson and an AJ, or a Kyle Larson and a Daniel Suarez, or a Kyle Larson and a Joey Logano. Or you can swap out Kyle Larson for any of those guys and run a Ross Chastain or a Ty Gibbs. I think it's one driver in the top 5. Then if it's not SVG, I think you can run some other guys that are in the top 10. But if you're honestly thinking that SVG is going to be the top points getter and he's going to dominate, I don't know if anybody else in the top 10 really come into play. Because I don't think they're going to score enough points. Or if that is the case, then you're going to have to dip down to a Ty Gibbs at $7,400 if you think Ty Gibbs is going to finish in second. But that's only if SVG is going to dominate. So I guess, let's see, you also asked, I guess Buescher can get there. A 5th place would be 50 points. I mean, well, where's he starting? 16th? 16th to 5th? I think that's correct. If he's got 5 fast laps, oh yeah, it definitely puts him there. I mean, to get to 50 points, because he's not that expensive. Yeah, I mean, 1 fast lap, a 5th place finish for Buescher at 8,400. Yeah, 5th place finish would get you there. So, yeah, I think Buescher's definitely in play. I mean, that's why he's one of my top place differential guys. It's not a strong place differential. It's much more of a slight place differential and top 5 finish, along with an SVG who dominates. Then, yeah, he's definitely in play. So, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a lot of information to kind of ponder and go over. Good luck. I think, if anything, it's going to be an interesting race. I actually I was a little bit regretting them going to Mexico for a race, but after watching the Xfinity race and the way the stadium is set up in the middle of the town, I think it's actually pretty cool. 7,500 feet, the mountains in the background, it's unique. So I worry about that turn that took out the leaders today. It wasn't turn 1. It was turn 3 that took the leaders out. But it was turn 1 that caused turn 3. So, yeah, I mean, that one straightaway is horrendously long. You almost want them to put a dog leg kind of in the middle of it, or a bus stop in the middle of that thing to kind of slow them down before we get to turn 1. But hey, kind of makes for an exciting race. We could see a massive pileup. So, that's the other reason I get a little leery with taking some of these guys that are starting up front, but it's a chance you take. It's called gambling for a reason. So good luck. Next week we go, I think it's Pocono. So we'll be back for another Saturday night event to discuss Pocono and all the fun stuff. And then then it's another week, and then I head to Florida. But I'll still be on maybe an abbreviated version of this. I may not have the full details, being not at home on my computer. So either way, I appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow. Enjoy the race. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And we will see everyone next Saturday. Good luck. Bye.
Gentlemen, start your engines. 40 cars coming to life. Can you still pace the field? Yep. Love it.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so gotta be around the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker, Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.